We have the pleasure of welcoming Barry Flack today to our interview series Leaders Hum. I'm Aishwarya Jain from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick intro of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work with AI and automation technologies. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Barry Flack is a global HR executive who has helped a lot of businesses with all things HR. He's an advisor, writer, speaker, trainer, and a business owner, an expert and a technology enthusiast. He has been trying to bridge the gap between HR and technology in organizations. With his vast experiences, we are sure he'll be able to give our viewers good insights on the 21st century HR technology and the future of work. Welcome, Barry. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you very, very much. That is a description that I'm going to steal and to use wherever I go. So I'm very honoured to both be asked, and I hope for everybody watching, I can add a bit of value in this strange time. I find myself as an Irishman, for those who can understand my accent, living just outside London amidst the madness that has engulfed the globe at the moment. So great to get to speak to you, and great to be able to talk about something that I've been very passionate and very obsessed about for a long time.
The pleasure is all ours, Barry. So the first question I had for you was, tell us a little bit about your journey so far in the world of human capital management.
Yeah, look, put simply, if it wasn't, I'd be here for several days. I've had a long and varied and incredibly well-versed career to date, but I would split it in three. Like everyone who came out of university, I spent my first period in the late 1990s, I know, hard to believe, working in lots of big, complex corporate HR organizations. I learnt my trade there. I got us through strange and wonderful things like Y2K, and I seen us enter the global financial crisis. And I guess I brought that part of me to an end because my natural Irish curiosity wasn't really set up in organizations that were not terribly opening to questioning, and I had a very fixed way of doing things. So my next stage was very much about being a pretty young, active, interim career person who saw the value of going into distressed, typically organizations who were frankly changing everything from their business model to going through a bit of hyper growth. And looking for someone who could try and take that organization through that. So I experienced more of what I seen was inherent dysfunction. My curiosity was piqued, and I guess brought me into what I've now enjoyed since 2016, which is a freelance portfolio career that encompasses all those great things that you spoke about, where I, do everything from consulting in with organizations, working alongside private equity, venture capital. I've always been a massive advocate for technology. And so I've worked and do work with a lot of HR startups in the space. And I try and bring this together every so often, speaking on things like this and writing quite a lot to try and distill, I guess, some sense of it for me and hopefully the audience out there.
Wow, thank you so much for that explanation. And it definitely tells us a lot about who you are and what you've done and what your passion is. So, as you said, you're very passionate about technology and, human resources and things digital, right? So, according to you, how important of a role will technology and digital make in the inclusive workplace of the future?
Sure, that's a great question. Look, I'm going to surprise everybody. I'm going to clearly talk to my massive passion for technology, but I'm always going to put it as a distant second to what I call organizational systems. Yeah. So let me sort of talk about that. I think a lot of organizations are still on a little bit of a continuum. And that continuum, put plainly and simply, is ranging from stopping making people's lives miserable in the workplace. And we've got low levels of engagement, and we've got lots of issues around stress, etc., that we, still prevail in our organizations. And for those who've worked their way through that, then at the other end of the continuum, we are looking at technology and an employee experience. A very clear sense of where technology is brought to play to make that experience, much, much better. I am very much a challenge to HR in allowing organizations to be honest about where they plot themselves on that continuum. So look, expanding on that, part of what I still see decades after this should not have been the case, are organizations who are still addicted to the idea that people are inherently evil. Yeah? There is a piece of work for any of your viewers who are interested in this that an individual called McGregor wrote back in the 1950s called Theory X and Theory Y. So stand back and think about that. 70 years ago, we set in play a challenge to a view that people were inherently lazy, or that people would do less if given the possibility. There is no underpinning management science to allow us to confirm that at all. But we still have fixed mindsets that allow both HR practitioners and people in organizations to believe that. So for any of your viewers, this is, we must have a people-centric, positive view of people before we can start making use of the systems that we put in, or indeed on top of that and in conjunction, technology. Yeah, we've rebranded it. We now call it digital. Several years ago, we used to call it social when Facebook and Twitter entered the world. So I'm very conscious that we do tend to rebrand unnecessarily. But technology has been there and with us for many a decade. What we've got to understand in the first instance is, do we have a positive view of people inside our organization? And the answer should be yes. So let's liberate them. Let's tap into their potential. And then let's see, with this massive exponential growth in technology, how we can use the brain power and the technology power that brings to make people's lives easier, to release that and stop doing dumb things that we have done historically.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is that you have to be people-centric and you have to be people first, and then talk about tech and how tech can be an enabler in all of this, right?
Yeah. So look, let me give an example if that helps. So many years ago, in one of our first waves, around about 2003, 2004, we built a technology solution called an intranet. Yeah, it was great. It took everybody away from the paper-based filing cabinet to find that document. Now, we then put it online and we give people a binary look at 24/7 access. And here's the crux. The reading document of HR policy was still awful. It still contained 101 ways of diminishing people's potential in the workplace. Yeah? The fact that we moved it online and you can read it or print it out or use technology to get to the right chapter is by no means a use of technology. Yeah? What we have to crack is what we put in there and the spirit of how we manage people inside organizations. And so for your viewers, it's thinking along that continuum. How many of those do we still have, and why, before we start getting into really ramping up technology's potential for us?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. And in your lifetime, have you seen people kind of getting repelled by technology, like, the baby boomers and, the internet came in and then they adopted that, but are they really adopting the tech that is there now, that's prevalent now, AI, automation? Are they really using it as an enabler?
Yeah, look, They want to. So let me go after another myth buster. Yeah? And the other myth buster is, in my massively positive view of individuals, there is no such thing as resistance to change. There is only intelligent responses to that change. And what we've had in the past, and we still have it in big transformation pieces, is that individuals will rationalize what that technology piece means. And so it might mean a loss of hierarchy. It might mean a loss of status. It might mean that if I am in a recruitment function and I have enjoyed inefficiently sending candidate letters for 3 days, that new technology will mean that I can do it with the press of a button. And that's great. But I want to know what it means for me. And I want to know if I'm trained to do it. Yeah. So a real piece in, and I've done lots of technology adoptions, is that we castigate people by going, oh, see them over there? They're resistant to change. We roll our eyes. We blame the individual. And we've got to stop doing that. We've got to start recognizing that intelligent people have intelligent responses. And unless we step into that, then I think, as you pointed out, the use of artificial intelligence, they're going to throw up new questions. They're going to throw up new problems for us to solve. And that's great. We should embrace that. That is why our machine, the brain, is the most phenomenal thing on the planet and always will be. So we should allow ourselves, the freedom to think that's okay. We've got some big ethical issues coming up with artificial intelligence. We've got some big issues around bias in the talent acquisition space because we fed the machine our thoughts. So how do we do that? We're giving technology too much credit. And I say that as a technology evangelist. We're giving it superpowers it doesn't have. Yeah, it's programmed with our algorithms, with our assumptions. And a bit like a new employee will take time to improve. So a lot of the technology adoptions I see are people believing that it's a plug and play. We bought the system on Monday, we're fed up that come Tuesday it's not giving us what we want. Yeah, we've got to move beyond some of that.
Wow, that is quite insightful, how you put it, wherein, technology has to be used, but it has to be used prudently, and tech providers need to really understand what is it that the end user wants and how can it add more value to what they're doing, so that they don't get frustrated with the tool, right?
Absolutely. Yep. It's what problem are we solving? And back to my analogy, if it's solving something that remains a problem, automating it, codifying it is not the answer. So we need more joint design principles involved. We need people not being, and the early adoption of technology was driven by the IT space. We were taking a lot of thought processes from other parts of our big functional, silos. But we need people, and I would argue, that those people aren't necessarily born and bred in HR. We need people who understand the job as it's being done, and we need to wrap technology around the experience. And so much of our current evolution in technology by lots of the, startup disruptors, the people who are giving us a lot of vendor vision, are getting that. They are getting the designing around the experience of people doing the job is central to its stickiness, to its adoption. We've given too many products in the past that people hate because it's an add-on to their day job. We've got to stop doing that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's exactly what I was coming to. These legacy systems being really complex in how they've kind of build themselves. It's very difficult to adopt it because you kind of get exhausted just looking at the system. There's so many things on it that you don't know where to start from. And then you have to you need a lot of training, you need a lot of support from the tech side. And then it's just exhausting for you to adopt that technology. And I think we need to make adoption of technology easier as we move ahead. So, with respect to that, what do you think are the important highlights of any good platform. How can a platform be more robust, and how can it be, more, adoptable as such?
Yeah, look, I think it's, the secret of good platforms is in the design. Yeah, it is about recognizing that there is a utility that, we bought to undertake in this particular technology adoption. What is it we need to do? And working our way from a user point of view into that experience. So, a very clear and obvious flow of data, a very clear and obvious ability to understand the workflow as it goes around in terms of putting that through, and a very clear and obvious understanding of where that sits inside your ecosystem. So we've got a problem over the last one. We don't have enough clever integration in and around. It's the nature of the market that we're in, where we've got big HCM data pipes being surrounded by too many point solutions and APIs. That's okay. We'll solve that one. That's sort of where we'll go. But there is an element of understanding in the platform that you have some simple utility that you want people to own, build, and develop around. Get them to own it, but have in front of you a platform that, frankly, you have trust in. Yeah, and this idea of trust is massive. So the data that goes in, the understanding of the utility that it delivers, are all incredibly important. Let's not go after replicating some of those that are on the open source that exist. So in the learning space, learning management systems as records, have now evolved into understanding that the greatest place we've all now found, probably by accident, to develop ourselves is YouTube. We go there and understand how to do absolutely everything on it because somebody on the planet has built a video around it to help us do that. So our understanding that some of these platforms do not have to be overcomplicated. Yeah, that they can ultimately cleverly integrate with other things that are more tuned to what people enjoy doing. Yeah, and I think we're beginning to understand that. We've got a lot of legacy platforms we've got to go after, where, frankly, the workflow and the wiring of that is far too complex. Yeah, too many touch points, too many experiences to get a simple transaction done, that in a productive environment where people have little time and a little span of attention, it's another obstacle for walking away from it or working our way around it. So we've got to build a product that is user friendly as built by the user, and then keep that simple. Yeah, the Apple product is the most wonderful example of how that is. Yeah, we are not overly fussed, as a user about what goes on inside that. Yeah, that we'll leave that to the nerds who enjoy it. That's great. But we want simple functionality in front of us at the right time to do our job in the day.
Absolutely. I think the front end of it has to be very simple to use because your end user is not necessarily technical. You can keep the engine, as complex as you want. It's like the car engine. So you have kind of the lid on it, and you have all the components under it. So you don't have to necessarily lift the lid, but the car looks beautiful. It's simple, it's intuitive, and it kind of makes you want to engage with it, right?
And I think on that point, a really good follow-up here is that a lot of tech vendors and platforms are terribly obsessed in selling what's under the bonnet. Yeah, and I think we've gone through a phase of, get it here, get your artificial intelligence-driven what's it, when we were never, we never cared about PHP or any other language that was in the back end of things. We want to know, will this thing match people quicker? Yeah, will it give me an answer to something? Will it allow me to find the 5 people I need to do the following job? Will it allow me to collaborate? I want to know the utility of this in my day job as I go from the start to the end. And so that's why we've got to get a real sense of technologists, take a little step behind the curtain, do your amazing things, but allow us to do the sort of simple problem statement. Yeah? When I open it, can this happen? And if X happens, I'm really, really happy. And I don't really care what's going on in here. I marvel at it, but I don't really, lie awake at night wondering how it connects with you actually in the other part of the globe.
Absolutely, I love your ideology there. And are you also a believer in chatbots? Do you think it makes things easy? So when you have an HCM that's integrated with a chatbot, does it kind of make things easier for, especially the new age people, the millennials who are going more from the menu-driven applications to something that's more conversational, as we call it?
Yeah. Look, I am. This debate, it's a really interesting debate because it gets the opposition to this are people who've never grown up in that environment. Yeah. So you've got people who are in charge of the budget or need to develop the strategy, who are of a certain age with certain life experiences and certain perceptions that are biased towards it. And one of the big things is always that, my goodness, I wouldn't use this. Yeah, it just won't. And then we go into the science and the data of understanding that we have, a whole population that does this in their everyday life. It can fit this particular functionality and this feature set in. And that it's an answer. It's not the entire answer, but it's clearly an answer to, if I think back to simple, rudimentary HR support, a lot of the people that I dealt with wanted an answer 24/7. They wanted, at times the ability to know, did they have enough holiday at 10:30 on a Friday evening because their wife or their husband is booking a holiday and they just want to be able to press the button at that point. Yeah? If I can phone or I can go in and someone can tell me that I have enough, that is a great piece of, because we find out that stops us productivity, answering that question a dozen times. So where we place it, what problem are we solving? Where does the capability end? Where does that piece say that how far into it will it'll always be the chatbots and everything? Well, we've always, they're fine questions. Some of the debates, frankly, are a bit ridiculous. I think they're here to stay. They will refine, they will get better, and we've got to stop bringing such snobbery to this idea when we don't even think about it elsewhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. And what I'm hearing now is that there will be a set of features that will be used more after we are done with the whole pandemic scenario. And one fine gentleman told me that succession planning would be one feature that would be used more probably after the pandemic is over. So do you also kind of have something in mind that would be used more than other features in a platform?
In that particular context, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a
Like
post-pandemic world,
right.
in terms of so we're currently rewriting the rules to absolutely everything. So I think feature-wise, some of those problems that we're going to step into are about how robust and resilient have our organizations been in meeting this particular crisis. So beyond the existential, do we have, frankly, enough cash to burn in the next few months until we can begin to operate? There is a whole series, of other problem statements, which I think will see, organizations try and tap into the whole analytics piece in a real sense of early warning. Yeah. So how can we build a knowledge and understanding of the data that our organizations have that allows us to be as best prepared as possible? How well do we know our people beyond some of the great stuff we're doing on the cultural system side of things, but some of it being the core hard, how do I tap into other things that the individual has? How do I tap into the sorts of ways that they want to work? How do I understand where my resources or my supply chain is actually operated out of? If I can't get on a plane and go to the Far East anymore, do I need to nearshore, and when are those capabilities in place? How does my deployment strategy from a resourcing point of view factor in the people who are with me, who now need to be furloughed in this strange way of managing? And how do I deal flexibly with this thing that I haven't really embraced, which is the broad atypical space that spans everything from crowdsourcing to gig workers to, per hour on demand, etc., etc. I think we will get organizations who will return and think that that's what the right strategy is, and then will die, because I don't think we can return. I think there are those who will be very business continuity management liking. How do we get the robustness? How does our remote working capability look and feel like? Our collaboration tools, right? And then I think others are thinking, we've sort of not stepped into this problem enough, but a black swan pandemic will reach us again next year and the year after, and something else will happen. Unless we have a robust, resilient organization that actually allows us to be able to buffer against these, we will die on one of these waves. And if I was to once again go back to what wins between technology and organizational systems, I think the massive growth in decentralized businesses will grow. Because I think we're finding in our responses that those organizations closer to the problem, and the problem are they know the people and they know their market, are the ones who are going to be more resilient, rather than the organizations who've still got a very strong command and control.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's time, I think, that we change the narrative of these platforms and put them on a track that's actually work from home sensitive, and it's kind of how do you kind of remotely work and integrate with a lot of collaborative tools to make the whole employee experience smooth and kind of make it very intuitive and really robust. I agree with that.
Yeah, look, it's all roads in that particular debate go back to my hopeful takeaway, which is if you do not have a positive view of the people you've hired or engage with, you will be incredibly half empty when approaching remote working. Yeah, you can't see them. You cannot, feel in the controlling manner that too many organizations are addicted to today. You're not focused on outputs. You are lost in your own ability to inspire people from a distance. You know when to back off, to watch the signals. All that stuff is very different. So the organizations who prior to this have said, I'm going to have a remote working organization, that's going to be the center point on it, are not moving their office-based work to people's homes. They're recognizing that the dynamic in that needs to be nurtured, managed, factored in a very different way. But it's not about just holding off people. It's about understanding that how do you make people belong in a place like that? What systems allow them to feel they can work at any time, that they can turn up and they haven't shaved, that they can, that they can step away because they'll come back to it later on. All of that stuff that ultimately says, I think you're brilliant, I trust you, and I want you to get support from me and not feel the other way around, that I want you to tell me what have you been doing all day. Yeah, I don't want that anymore. So it's, those organizations, I think, coming out of this, and we're seeing it in a very open way, there's a lot of judgment being made of businesses, from those who are sacking people very quickly to incredibly rich sponsors of organizations who don't seem to be doing enough, to people who have horror stories on remote working, I think we'll regret how it will feel after this when good talent will go, I don't care how good your EVP or your recruitment marketing looks. I seen what you did and I don't want to work for you.
Absolutely. I think, a lot of people are going to look at organizations and they are going to ask them tough questions, like, what did you do during the pandemic? What have you been doing? Have you helped anybody? Or have you just been sitting there and, hatching eggs? So absolutely agree with you. And it's very important in these times, especially for managers and leaders, to look at their teams and, trust them, have that, bridge built out that I understand that you're working from home and you're bringing home into work, so there would be a lot of empathy that would be required by managers and leaders. And absolutely agree with you on that one. And I love it. I love your outlook of positivity. How you have to look at the glass, half full and not half empty, and that's really what's required. I really appreciate that.
Look, there's a tremendous opportunity for us here. It is a massive shock to the global system. Yeah, we're here to talk about it in the context of work. But in that example, I've been trying in an era of enlightening organizations when the burning platform wasn't there. So, when I've asked them to trust people and let them work from home, there's this suspicion. Now, what has now fired my enthusiasm, of course, is we're going to have, let's say, 6 months of people settling in and being productive, finding their way around it and, doing their job from remote. So when we go back and we meet that manager, we're going to be able to look at them in the eye and go, well, what is your case for not letting this happen? We have operated brilliantly. We have developed the organization in this way. We've got a percentage, maybe a high percentage of those people who want to stay in that domain. Who don't really want to go back to traveling, long hours away and everything that goes with it. Not all. And then we've got that other piece we spoke about earlier, which is, the resistance piece. We've got the manager re-examining the fact that their role is, in its historic way, dying in front of them. What do they do anymore? What is the space they fill when a lot of automation, a lot of productivity apps, and a lot of ways that we want to work, which is about getting out of the way, suggest that we should just get rid of millions of managers. And there is an argument to do that from a very productive point of view. But of course, the last thing we want are millions of middle managers suddenly let loose on society, in every true sense. So look, we have a duty of care. We've created the system. We've said that's what we want you to do. Hold that together and control and report upwards and shout downwards. So we owe it to them to say, well, actually, the game's changed. And this is what it looks like. And it's your friend technology and the algorithm and the machine and people. And stop doing lots of this, but do lots more of that. And whatever that all starts to come out like will be incredibly scary for some of these individuals.
Yeah, definitely would be scary. And you're right, middle management they can cause a lot of confusion because they're conveying messages and that kind of, there would be a lot of miscommunication. And there is a revolt that's coming up that you don't need middle management to kind of have a good organizational system, as you call it. So I completely agree with that.
Absolutely. The cascade of information down an organization to the middle manager and into what I call the periphery, where you're sitting next to the marketplace, was fine 50 years ago. So my argument with lots of businesses who get excited that we're in future of work today, actually our future of work clock started in the mid-1970s when the world changed forever. Yeah, the old production line of Ford, the I can give you any car you want as long as it's black approach has gone. We got complexity. We could not plan against the market and we can't plan against the complexity of people. We have struggled and the manager in that scenario has struggled in there for over 4 decades now to try and find their way of existence as the world has moved and as technology has exponentially gone through the roof. So I feel sorry for them until I'm subjected to them, and then my sympathy goes very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what is your message, for our viewers? And this is the last part of it, really. What are some important takeaways that you'd like our viewers to really, ponder on, or you'd like them to know from your perspective, from your knowledge, from your experience?
Sure. Look, as we go away from this, and look, as we are all in the same boat together, look, we should never, ever, ever underestimate the magnificent resilience, intelligence, innovation of individuals, of human beings. So we will all get ourselves out of this. Our ability to go back and solve these new problems are equally within the gift of the most magnificent machines on the planet, the human. And we will go and solve, these particular, issues that we have in there. But I think the two takeaways are, as you go and find the headroom to return and answer those questions, think about how your organizations treat that question of McGregor, theory X, theory Y. Do you trust that your workforce are people who have great intent? And if they do, the second part of it is, what have you got inside your organization that frankly runs counter to that? What are the sorts of traditions, rituals, things that are just there that we just won't question? And many of those are in the HR domain. Should we frankly put into the museum? Should we stand back and say, to really flourish, we need to find mastery and be really good at the technology, the experience, people, but actually we cannot be interfering. We cannot go in and interfere with people doing a job they love doing if we don't put the answer in their hands. Let them design learning in the flow of work. Let them design how they produce in the flow of work. Yep. Let them create as many opportunities for positive feedback flows. Don't hand them an annual appraisal. Yep. Let them understand the sentiment of their people. Don't have an annual engagement survey. Yeah. Lots of things are on the continuum, making people miserable to being badly delivered as an experience. So do that work. It's great problem solving. Every organization will be different, and we need to be honest about that. We have a window, and I think we should go and use it.
Absolutely agree with that. I think a lot of workplaces are like living museums.
Yes.
It's really important now that we ask ourselves, are we giving employees a great experience, and do they really feel belonged? Do they have a purpose? Do they feel like they're adding value to organizations? And those are interesting questions to ponder on.
Absolutely, but they're great questions. And when we run out of questions is when humanity will end. Yeah, we'll just fall over like a machine. Yeah, like some sci-fi movie. But we won't. We are here because our brain, that wonderful muscle, wants us to solve those problems, and that's great. So let's get the data, let's get the evidence, and let's start burning some of these awful old rituals and watching the return we get on the value of people. The terrific stuff about technology is that it comes in and it provides us with the tools, the capability and the insight to do things that we don't want to do because they're really boring and nobody wants to count things for weeks on end. The machine loves it. Give them the stuff that's boring while we go and solve the problems.
Absolutely. It's time that we start doing some higher order thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've got everything in here, right? Even technology is something that we produced out of here. So
yeah.
We
absolutely.
We must work in conjunction and create something beautiful that's that has value more than it goes beyond us, and that would be beautiful.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And that's the exciting bit. Beyond all the daily news items of doom and gloom, And look, I don't want to underplay it. There's some terrible things happening on it, but post, for those of us, the vast, vast majority, we're going to have wonderful opportunities to solve some terrific problems.
Absolutely. It's time we stay positive and get this going. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. I loved having this conversation with you, Barry, and I really, really appreciate your time and sharing your views with us. It's personally been a very enriching experience for me and surely for our viewers as well. So thank you so much.
No, look, thank you, and I'm honoured. Really appreciate getting the time. Stay safe, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Absolutely. And I'll stay in touch with you.
Take care.